franktalks.com.
Good Sunday evening and welcome back to the Howie Silbiger Show, live every Sunday evening from 6 to 9 p.m. right here on CJRS Radio Shalom Montreal 1650 a.m. Heard around the world on the True Talk Radio Network. I invite you again to visit truetalkradio.com and you'll find a lot of exciting stuff on there. Articles, online streaming, radio, plenty more things. My name is Daniel Oniatsure. I'm filling in for Howie this week. You may know me from my financial segment that I do here on the Howie Silbiger Show. Howie's not feeling so well and we wish him a refuah shalema, a speedy recovery. We have coming up in a couple of seconds Frank Kermit, ND, naturopath and relationship coach. And his website is franktalks.com. And he's got a workshop coming up on Thursday, March 28th about Ask Me Anything workshop. He's here with us via Skype. Good to have you here, Frank. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Daniel. Great to be here.
I was reading one of your you write a lot of really interesting blogs and articles, and one of them was touching on rejection, handling rejection, using it to empower you. How can rejection be positive? Because, most people I speak to don't like rejection very much, especially like whether it's in relationships, from a romantic perspective, whether it's in business, in a career. It's a taboo thing. People don't like getting out of their comfort zone. They're scared to push themselves a little bit of how it might affect them.
Exactly. And when it comes to rejection, you have to remember, if you're going to put yourself out there, if you want to have a love life, if that's what you're aiming for, you're going to deal with rejection at some point. Somebody that you're going after may say, look, I don't think it's going to work out. Or you've been dating for a while and they say, you're not really what I'm looking for long term. Or it's very possible that someone has an interest in you and for whatever reason, you don't have an interest in giving them a shot. You're going to have to deal with rejection, and it's unpleasant, but it's a part of life. It's a part of relationships. It could even be involved when you're talking about, and I didn't get into this in the article, but we can talk about it now. You're in a long-term relationship. You have this idea, a business plan, a new venture, an idea to live in another city, a change of career. You go to your spouse and you say, I want to do this. And your spouse says, I don't like that idea.You're still dealing with some form of rejection.
Right.
It's better to get used to it. It's better to get used to it.
Does rejection get any easier once you're exposed to it, or does it really just break you down? I think that's what people are afraid of being exposed to too much rejection, and they might not be able to handle it.
It's not the amount of rejection that will do you in. Okay? It's not the amount of rejection. What it is how rejection is interpreted. Mm-hmm. So you go out there and you are just trying to approach new people, trying to ask people out on dates, trying to figure out how to connect with people, and they keep rejecting you. Now, how do you interpret that message? You can interpret it as, wow, every time I get a rejection, it means I'm a loser, I'm unlovable, and no one will ever want me. Or you can interpret it as a different way. It's a message about your approach. Maybe I'm coming on too strong. Maybe I'm not coming off assertive enough. Maybe I'm not making the other person feel special when I approach them. Maybe they see me approaching other people and figure that there's nothing really intriguing about them. It's so you can take that message as, maybe my approach is what they were turned off by, so I can modify my approach, try something new. So rejection, in either case, is a message. How you interpret that message will decide whether or not rejection kills you or makes you stronger.
But how easy is it to do that? Because when you do get rejected, you're feeling pretty bad about yourself. So I guess you have to, let yourself get over that a little bit and then really take into account what you did, try to do some self-evaluation and understand how you can do things differently. I mean, it's really similar to any other failure in life. If you fail at something, whether it's in business or, I'm in business, so, I go see some clients sometimes and things don't always work out with the clients like I had hoped they would. And, in the beginning of my career, I would just be down about it and I would move on. And then I realized that these were critical opportunities for me to really evaluate what I said that didn't go right, or what I did or what I didn't do, or how I may have misinterpreted the other person's body language, speech, or whatnot, and how I can improve that for the future. And it's actually one of the most critical parts of growing as a person, especially for me in my career as a financial advisor, to really understand how I can self-improve myself, how I can really evaluate and just use that information to propel myself forward in a more positive way.
Let's look at that example you gave, a business example. Sometimes a business has to experiment with a different venture, and sometimes the results are good, sometimes the results are bad, but you're always getting a result. With each result you get, there's a lesson to be learned.
Exactly.
What worked and what didn't work. In relationships, dating, it's the same thing. If you keep getting rejected, you have to start questioning, why am I constantly being rejected? Now, let's make a distinction here. Sometimes it's not you. Sometimes the other person's rejecting you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. Other times, it is you.
I was just going to say that. I mean, it has to be you sometimes, right?
Yes. So let's look at let's look at a business example. What if you're following a business plan, some business advice that under regular circumstances should work really well? You're following the advice to the letter, and according to the advice, you should have a full client base. You should be able to make the sale within a certain given period of time if you do everything on the list.
Right.
Well, sometimes you can do everything on the list. How do you know when it's not you, when it's the other person? If you have an established track record. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you have an established track record, and then you run into somebody that, even though you followed through on all of the rules, it still doesn't work, that's when you can say that one person is just not connecting. That's that other person that has the issue that's blocking them from carrying this over. When, however, everybody seems to be an exception to the rules, no, that's when you know it's you.
Right. I was just going to get to that because sometimes in business or in relationships, there's sometimes so many variables that we're not necessarily even aware of that can affect the other person's decision one way or the other. So we might think it's us, or we might think it's them, and in some cases it's neither. It could be timing, it can be mood, it can be so many different things that, we're just don't have control of. And in business, I had learned early on that there's a lot that is out of my control when it comes to business relationships. So I've got to put whatever I can that I can control on my side. And going back to your point, that's really trying to learn from your mistakes, trying to, self-evaluate yourself whenever you can, and that really is what life is about, right? Growing and becoming a better human being and a more successful human being and a better communicator and a better lover.
And if you use rejection as a learning tool, if every time you get rejected, instead of saying, wow, I really feel bad now and I have tons of reasons to feel bad, if you look at it and say, okay, what's the lesson behind this rejection? What's the education?
Right.
Consider every rejection one of the best forms of education you'll ever have. Because once you take every rejection you've ever been given as a form of education, you stand a better chance of making your long-term relationships in the future work because you're figuring out what you're doing wrong right now.
Yeah, but Frank, if you're getting rejected, on a regular basis and you're applying this method that you're mentioning that makes perfect sense, eventually, if you're still getting rejected, the human beings, we're going to get pretty down on ourselves. I mean, it's bound to happen, even if we're how do we deal with that?
You are down. Okay, look, you are going to get down. But the question here is, what is something that you haven't looked at that you maybe should change? Let's use this example. Maybe the issue isn't that you're doing anything wrong, but you're targeting people that aren't really interested in having the kind of lifestyle you want. Right. What if everybody that you're targeting is someone that you have to convince to live the lifestyle you want? Well, let's say, and we'll use something that we can relate to the Jewish culture here. There are some Jews that make it very, very clear that they will not have certain dietary issues, and then there are some Jews that will be a bit more flexible. You have to make sure that you're aiming for people that you don't have to convince or convert.
Absolutely. We're going to have to leave it there for just a moment. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of Frank Kermit, relationship coach. You can visit franktalks.com, and he's got a workshop happening on March 28th where you can ask him anything about anything. So thank you for being our guest. We'll be back after the break. You're listening to the Howie Silbiger Show live on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Shalom Montreal.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
Welcome back to the Howie Silbiger Show live every Sunday evening on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Shalom Montreal. We're live every Sunday from 6 to 9 p.m. We won't be here next week because it's Passover, and we are talking with Frank Kermit, ND, naturopath and relationship coach. His website is franktalks.com. He has the Ask Me Anything workshop happening on Thursday, March 28th, which is, I guess if I know my calendar, it's happening this Thursday, basically, right?
That's correct. This Thursday at 7 p.m. at night.
We were talking to Frank just before the break, and one of the things that I want to ask Frank about, because it is Passover, tonight is the Birikat Chametz, the search for the Chametz. The first Seder is happening tomorrow evening, and the second Seder is happening on Tuesday evening, And now it's the holidays, families are getting together, people are getting together. We get to be reunited with some cousins that you might want to see, some cousins that you might not want to see. What do we do if there's a new partner in your life? And when's the right time to really bring that person in to meet the family? Is it as far as a certain time period should go, or like what are the indicators?
Well, first and foremost, you should not be bringing a new partner to meet your family unless you're thinking about getting very serious with that partner. Otherwise, you're just inviting trouble. Mm-hmm. You don't invite somebody who's simply a friend, someone you're seeing casually, someone you're getting to know. If you're going to invite someone, make it a point to say, this is a sign that we're trying to move this up to the next level. So that's the first thing. It's not based on how long you two have been seeing each other, but what level of commitment that relationship has finally entered.
And why is it a problem? Sorry to interrupt you. Why is it a problem to bring them if you're just casually seeing them? How is that a problem?
Okay, well, first of all, if you're just casually seeing them, the people around you in your family, in your very extended family, they're not going to be thinking, oh, this is just a friend who's showing up. They're going to be assuming that there must be some type of connection there. And at the very least, we know that family can sometimes, with the best of intentions, pry a little too much, ask very inappropriate questions. So you better make sure that the person that you're bringing over really likes you enough to tolerate that and is going to take that in stride.
Especially in Jewish families.
Well, you know what? It's not cultural. No matter what culture there is, I coach people from all different walks of life. They all have to deal with the relatives who are just a little too interested in the personal dealings of the new partner, and asking embarrassing questions such as, "So, are you related to anybody that matters?" I mean, those type of questions probably. Oh yeah, I've heard everything from, are you related to anybody that matters, or what's your background? Who do you know? What's your last name?
What do you do for a living?
What do you do for a living? That's another one. And what kind of a future do you plan to have? And you're talking like you just met somebody and it's like 20 minutes into the conversation and they're starting to ask questions that is something that is probably not their place. They do it with the best of intentions. They do it out of love. They care about their family member and they see their family member getting serious with somebody new. However, a family holiday gathering might not necessarily be the best place for that kind of first encounter. What I've often suggested is you bring your new partner to meet your immediate family on a couple of very private occasions. Hey, why don't you come on in for a few minutes? Just say hello to everybody. Get your family used to the idea so that by the time the big, holiday comes along, they're already familiar enough that conversation starters won't be that difficult. The other thing to consider is, will you have time to spend with your new partner at that family gathering? If you've got obligations at that family gathering to be hosting, to be spending time entertaining relatives from out of town. Might not be a good idea at that point. One family gathering that I had to attend, there was a new partner there of one of the relatives, but the person within the family was doing a lot of the hosting. So the new partner basically was sitting in a couch in the corner, and no one was acknowledging him.
Wow.
And I'm a very social guy, so I just went up to him and I said, "Hey, you're new here." No kidding.
Who are you?
He's one person here. Yeah. And he says, "Oh, I'm so-and-so's friend." Okay, right there. That's the first problem. Being introduced as the friend and not the partner. I'm not the person. He didn't say, "Oh, I'm so-and-so's boyfriend." He says, "Well, I'm so-and-so's friend." So that's already trying to make you to put a distance, make you feel uncomfortable. You're not there for that. You're there to celebrate in whatever the tradition is. You're there to get involved. And if you're not a very social person and your partner is the one who's doing a lot of the hosting, it's not going to make for a very good environment. Being the social guy that I am, I went up there, I started talking to him. I said, "Hey, let's go out for a walk. We'll walk around the block. We'll talk a bit more." Did what I could to make him feel comfortable. Something like that. Okay, that type of bad experience, if you're looking for a way to really push away a new partner and make them feel really isolated and make them have a very, very bad image as to what a long-term future with you is like, go ahead and invite them to a family gathering that you won't have time for.
One of the things that I learned the hard way, just before I say that, I want to just give the number out to people who want to call in. It's 514-738-4100, extension 200. We'd love to hear from you. But just going back to what you were saying about, family asking weird questions, I learned the hard way that, me as a person, before I speak to somebody, before I express my thoughts, I think about them. Is this appropriate? Should I be saying this? Is this the right setting to be saying something? And I learned, as I said, the hard way that there are certain people in this world, specifically family, because family tends to be more comfortable, that just is lacking that filter. They just say what comes out. It just, what's on their mind just comes right out. And that can make for some awkward situations, especially if you're bringing a new partner to the family, right?
Exactly. And one of the things I also do in my coaching practice, when someone says, "I want to introduce my partner to my family," I would also suggest that you do it in small chunks. You don't meet the whole family in one shot, although that can be very efficient, even though it invites a lot of these potentially embarrassing situations. One of the things you can do is just go up to certain family members and say, be very specific about what they're not supposed to ask.
Okay.
Do not just go to your family member and say, "Don't embarrass me."
Right.
That's very vague, because usually
good point.
The family member in question who's asking these inappropriate questions or making these inappropriate comments, they don't get the concept that what they're doing would be embarrassing at all. That's why when
hence
you go
my comment about the filter.
Exactly. So, don't go up and be general. Don't say anything to embarrass me. Don't do anything to embarrass me. Don't be mean to or don't insult my partner. A family member may not get how they're coming across. So it's better to go in and be specific. Do not ask my new boyfriend, girlfriend about what they do for a living. If it really comes to that, if it's that simple. Do not ask my boyfriend or girlfriend how we met. Do not ask my boyfriend or girlfriend, about the size of their pants.
People have asked that?
Do not. One question that was once asked by a family relative, because it was a person was a bit of a larger stature, and it was the person's aunt or grandmother, and just without thinking, she says, "What size underwear do you wear?"
My God.
And it was just, it puts everybody, of course, laughs. You just laugh it off. But it's not necessarily a very good impression that you want to give to your brand new partner of what of what spending time with your family is going to be like.
Right, but Frank,
so make sure that you.
There's so many.
Go ahead.
There's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many comments that are hard to anticipate. So how do you actually, warn someone or several people of what to say or what not to say, mind you, because, sometimes, conversations come up that you didn't anticipate and comments are said. And once you say something, it's hard to take it back, right? So it's hard to really, you can try. I guess it's better to do that than not to do anything at all. But
well, listen,
it just seems easier conceptually than it does practically, is what I'm saying.
People are their repeating behavior patterns. what that common relative said to all of the other new partners coming over is what that relative is going to say to your new partner coming over.
Right. Good point.
That's how you learn. That's how you go in there and you try to predict. Now, if you don't have a large extended family, or you simply don't have the experience to rely on, you can simply talk to your family and just try to think about what it is you think they may ask.
Oh, wait, fantastic. Thank you, Frank. We're going to go to break in about 30 seconds. He is a naturopath and a relationship coach. Website is franktalks.com, and he's got a workshop happening on this Thursday, about Ask Me Anything. I'm Daniel Aniatsada, filling in for Howie Silbiger. This is the Howie Silbiger Show, heard live every Sunday evening from 6 to 9 p.m. right here on Radio Shalom Montreal, 1650 a.m. CJRS.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
Welcome back to the Howie Silbiger Show, live every Sunday evening from 6 to 9 p.m. I'm Daniel Aniatsada, filling in for Howie this week. He's not feeling so well. We send him our best wishes for a speedy recovery. Hopefully he'll be back, not next week because we're off next week because of Passover, but the week after. We're here with Frank Kermit, ND, naturopath and relationship coach. He has a website called franktalks.com, and he's got a workshop happening this Thursday on Ask Me Anything. I'm assuming you can visit the website, franktalks.com, for more information about the workshop. In studio with me as well is Itai Azarad, who's here on almost every week. And Itai had an interesting question to ask our resident relationship expert and coach, Frank.
Okay, so Frank, the question I was thinking about is that if let's say you meet someone and you're good, you're starting to date and whatever, and one of the people in the relationship is a really big ideologue, like they are either really against fast food or they're really staunchly left wing or something, and they have big issues. Let's say some of the activities you want to go to, like they don't want to go to that company because that company's done some bad stuff or whatever. And then you have the other person who really doesn't care, not a big ideologue or whatever. And so, you know, the person who is the ideologue in the beginning, it never really came up. But eventually, if they say, well, hey, let's go eat at a fast food chain, you're like, you know, when is it good for people who are ideologues, who are, let's say, environmentalists and really hate X, Y, and Z? You know, how do you bring that up? Do you bring that up in the beginning? Do you bring that up later? How do you even tell the partner that you are like X, Y, and Z, and you really don't want to ever do that? And the other partner, you don't know you don't know what the reaction's going to be. So when is it a good time to bring that up?
The best time is the first date. If you've got some major boundaries, and what you're describing here are boundaries. We're not talking preferences. We're not talking about something that, yeah, I would prefer it, but, you know, I can go without it. When something is such a major boundary that it dictates your lifestyle, that's one of the conversations you need to be having on a first date. Mm-hmm. And if you're not sharing that with the other person on a first date, you're the one who's doing something wrong. You are, in fact, misleading the other person. So, if the ideology has to do with dietary concerns, places that you wish to boycott, certain events you will never attend, you need to communicate that on the first date, letting the other person know what they're getting into. Most people don't know themselves enough to know what really is a boundary. And that's where we have the big problems. Once you know what the issue is, once you know where your boundaries are, just communicate them on a first date.
Isn't that a real risk to do that? It's like, don't you risk really just scaring somebody away just by you're just getting to know somebody? I mean, if personally, I'm just speaking for myself, my own feelings. If I was on a first date with a woman and she told me that, you know, right off the bat, you know, in the middle of our conversation, or somehow it came up that she's really like is a I don't know, like she had really strong ideological feelings about, you know, a certain thing or the other. I guess it would depend what it was, but I would feel to a certain extent like maybe you're sharing a little too much right away. I'm just getting to know you. Just want to see if we're compatible first. Then we can get into, you know, more of the details. What would you be risking? What would you be risking? Telling somebody something that's important about yourself on the first date. What are you risking? Risking that they were going to leave or run away? If it's something really important to you and they're going to run away, that's the better risk to take. Because spending more time with them
and then turning out that you're not compatible, you've wasted your time. You have wasted a portion of your life. That's a more horrible risk to take.
And you can't get that back.
Wait, but then how do you start that up in the conversation? Like, do you just go to the date and say, "Oh, hey, yeah, I have this ideology, that ideology, that ideology. We can't do this, that, and that." Like,
here's my list. Here's my list.
Here's my list. How do you put that forward without making it sound like you're like limiting everything you could do, and it's just the first date.
But we're not saying that people are going to have a million different restrictions.
But how does one introduce, let's say that they are an environmentalist and they won't do that? Why? How does one introduce that?
The most charismatic, charming, seductive way you could ever introduce some of your own boundaries is to ask the person you're dating about what's important to them in a certain area. So, Itai, let's say you and me were on a date. In some fictional world there, okay? In some fictional world. And I have some dietary concerns. I have some dietary restrictions for whatever reason. One of the things I may ask you is, so tell me, Itai, when it comes to nutrition and eating out, what are your preferences? And I'll start with that question, because inevitably we're going to get into things that you like, you don't like. Mm-hmm. And then we'll get into the things that I like and I don't like and the reasons thereof.
Okay.
I'm Daniel Aniatsada. You're listening to the Howie Silbiger Show live until 9 p.m. this evening. The number to call in if you want to weigh in on the conversation is 514-738-4100, extension 200. We're here live in studio with Itai Azarad, our regular here on the Howie Silbiger Show. And we've got Mr. Frank Kermit, ND, naturopath and relationship expert and coach. And he has got a workshop happening this Thursday about Ask Me Anything. And you can visit his website for more information at franktalks.com. But I want to get into another topic relating back to relationships. I have a friend, and I won't mention his name because I don't want to embarrass anybody, that is in his early 50s, and he's on the dating scene. He's looking to settle down, to find real love, to be in a long-term relationship, and he feels that he's somewhat restricted based on his age, that women would not really be interested in going out with him because he's in his 50s, and he on a regular basis tells people that he's early 40s when he's really early 50s. Now, he's got one thing going for him. He looks a good 10 years younger than he actually is, so he does look like he's early 40s, but he isn't early 40s, he's early 50s. But his argument is that he wouldn't have the opportunity to go out with that person if he didn't lie, and he figures that eventually, if he does find the right person and they do get into a relationship, that once things get more serious and his partner will be more attached to him, that somehow, somewhere, it'll slip out that he's not really early 40s and he's actually 10 years older, and then she'll accept it. She might be disappointed, but she'll accept it, and then they'll move on with their lives. And that's a necessary risk that he feels he has to take in order to find, romance or a long-term relationship. Now, my question to both Frank and Itai is: do you think that's the right thing to do?
No. If you have to start off a relationship with lies, you're better off just putting your efforts and energy into dating other people who are more open-minded. And I got to tell you, I go into all kinds of alternative communities, traditional communities, and I have met people who are in their early 50s dating people in their late 20s. So,
which communities are these? Give me the address after the show. Moving along. I'm just joking.
Well, here's the thing. If you make a big deal of it, if you make a big deal of an age gap relationship, you're going to be pushing other people away.
Right. Good point.
The people who go ahead and date people who are 30 years their senior or 30 years their junior, they are the people who don't make an issue of it. They are the people who treat it as a natural process. Why? Everybody around you is going to have a problem with your relationship. But that goes for anybody. No matter if you're fat, if you're thin, if you're, regardless of your situation, everybody's going to have a comment about your relationship. And then the age gap is just one more thing. If you have an issue with it, if you make it a problem, you're not going to even be able to attract a partner. If you are comfortable with it, if you take the attitude of, age does not matter to me, and I am very, very content with how old I am. I can still lead a very content life, and I can connect with anybody. You will attract somebody who doesn't care about your age. I ran a speed dating event. Okay, there was a gentleman there who was elderly. Okay, we're talking about a senior. He was at least, like your friend, he was in his 50s.
Right.
And you would be surprised how many of the younger girls in their 20s and 30s said, I would be open to dating the guy because he himself was just very friendly, charismatic. They liked him. When I called him up and I said, you got these matches, would you be surprised to know that he's the one who said, I got these matches, but they're so young. They would never really want to date me, despite the fact they wrote on the paper they wanted to go out with him on a date. He's the one who said,
he couldn't believe it.
Really wouldn't want. Okay?
Really
so just remember this. If you're okay with it, others will be okay with it. Don't lie about it.
We're talking to Frank Kermit, ND naturopath, relationship coach. You can visit his website at franktalks.com. We're also joined with Itai Azarad live in studio here. I'd love to hear your opinion on this right after the break. You're listening to the Howie Silbiger Show live on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Shalom Montreal. I'm Daniel Anayat today. I'm filling in for Howie this week. He's not feeling so well, and we'll see you right after the break.
Need help with love, sex, dating, and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
Welcome back to the Howie Silbiger Show live every Sunday evening right here on Radio Shalom 1650 AM. I'm Daniel Anayatze sitting in for Howie Silbiger. He's not feeling so well this week. We wish him a speedy recovery. Live in studio with me today is Itai Azarad, and via Skype, Mr. Frank Kermit, ND, naturopath and relationship coach, and he's got a website, franktalkswithans.com. He's got a workshop happening this Thursday, the 28th, where you can ask him anything about anything. And Itai had some comments when we were on break that he wanted to share with everybody.
Okay,
or a question, I think.
Well, it's a question / opinion. One of the things I find, no, I'm not going to say ridiculous. I just find it, I find it not productive, is the whole idea of speed dating, where, it's just like you see the person for a minute, 2 minutes, and then you rotate, and then you see who you think you're most compatible. It's just a question. Do you really think anyone could start off any real relationship from that 2-minute speed dating kind of thing?
Actually, one of my, not really a friend, but someone I know from the office just got married maybe 2 months ago, and he met his wife at a speed dating event.
Okay. Fine.
That might be an exception.
I don't know. Okay, so let's ask the relationship expert.
I personally have never been to a speed dating.
Is a speed dating, is that like a speed dating versus other forms of ways of finding people? Is a speed dating, let's say, would that be the most productive way to find a partner? Is it effective, or is it only for the exceptional few that it works for? So let's ask our expert over there.
And I want to know after that, what is the most productive way of finding a partner? That's a good token that I want to get to, but let's first start with Itai's question.
Okay, Itai, my first question back to you is, have you ever actually attended a speed dating event?
No, I've never attended a speed dating event.
Yeah, that's probably why you're so down on it. I've met one of my best girlfriends ever in my life through speed dating.
Well, I'm not saying that. Okay. But I'm not saying does it work or not. No, I'm not saying does it work for a few people or not. Is it effective? Do you really think that a 2-minute conversation with someone, then a rotation, is that really the best way to see someone?
Well, first of all, it's not 2 minutes. They can be there for up to 10, sometimes 15 minutes per person. Depends on the event you go to. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. Number two, how you utilize the speed dating event, the types of question you ask. Now, if you ask a person questions like, so what do you do for a living? What do you like? What are you looking for? These are very vague questions and about information that have nothing to do with how a person treats you, what kind of life partner they are going to be. If you ask value eliciting questions, that is going to let you know whether or not somebody is compatible with you.
Can you give us some examples?
If you ask somebody, so what do you look? What? Sorry.
Can you give us some examples with what you would describe as value? What was the word again? I'm sorry.
Value eliciting question. Okay.
Yeah.
If I asked you, Daniel, what are you looking for in a relationship? Just give me something very brief. What are you looking for in a relationship?
Honesty.
Okay, that's pretty vague. That doesn't tell me the level of honesty. That doesn't tell me, because there are times when you might not be so honest, depending on the context.
Right.
Everybody would give an answer like, well, I'm looking for an honest person. Now I'm going to ask you a value eliciting question. Daniel, if you won $1 million in the lottery, what's the first things you would do with it?
With the money, you mean?
Yeah. You just won $1 million. What would you do with it?
Probably go on vacation. Or
all right.
Or
anything else?
Yes, I would.
Don't tell me or.
Okay.
I'm asking you a direct question.
This is
Very assertive.
Okay. So basically, the first thing I would do actually before going on vacation is donating some money to charity. I would want to make a difference.
Okay, so you donate money to charity, then what? Remember, you have $1 million to spend. What would you do with that million?
No, but you said what's the one thing? You didn't say then what. But we'll go there, no problem. I would then try to help out some of my family that I know needs help, charity, and I'll probably take some time, take a vacation somewhere. Bring some of my friends, family away, and just go away for a bit.
All right. Now, the first way you answer that question, you showed a particular value. Oh, I will go on vacation. That's after you thought about it. You said, well, before I go on vacation, I would give money to charity. Yeah, and then I would probably, look at my family, try to help them out, my friends. Each one of these things represents a value.
Right.
But the priority in which you answer that question tells me more about you than the actual answer. Your first thought was, I need a vacation.
Right, but how realistic is it to ask that question on a speed dating? Doesn't it sound a little weird?
In my coaching practice, when people come to me and say, why can't I connect with anybody? Why can't I find someone? I ask them these questions. And they do the same thing you did. You give the answer that you think the other people would expect. Now I'm asking you seriously. You've had some time to think about it, okay? You just won $1 million. And you know that I'm looking for the values behind your answers. I know that you're a family man. You care about your family. I know you care about your friends. I know you need a vacation. And I know you have a few charities.
Who doesn't need a vacation? We can always use a vacation.
But this is my point.
Right.
Well, everybody needs a vacation. So you know what? It's a useless answer.
I agree.
What I'm trying to tell you right now is that if you're going to say, ask me the question, and we're going to go through this. Ask me the same question, and I'm going to show you how in one quick answer, I can communicate to you what my most important values are.
Just if anybody wants to join the conversation, the number to call in is 514-738-4100, extension 200. So going back to what you're saying, Frank, if you won $1 million, what would you do? What would be the first thing that you would do if you had that money?
First thing I would do is I would pay off my debts, check with the government, make sure if I have to pay taxes on it, it's paid. I would buy a house. I would make sure that all of my family is taken care of. I would make sure money is set aside for my son so that if anything happens, he's taken care of. And if there's anything left over, I'm putting it away into an education fund. And if there's money left over there, maybe put up a couple of cottages there for people that I can help on my land. Now, I've just told you in that answer everything that I truly value.
Right. Mm-hmm. But that's more than one thing, though.
Things like,
if you want
yes.
But you even in that question, what I thought was really brilliant there was that, wait, hold on. Do you actually have a son now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, let's say there was someone who has a child and, they're still looking for someone to date because whatever happened, divorced or whatever, not to go into your life or whatever. But, that was a great way to say, yeah, I have a son. That was
Yes.
I just have to say, I just caught on to that. That was brilliant. That is a brilliant way to say, yeah, hey, I have a son.
Okay, so going back to this topic, what are some of the other questions that can be asked that can, I guess, discreetly expose a person's values in other ways?
I'll give you a fun one, okay? I'll give you a fun one.
Okay.
If life was a banana split sundae, what
like
part
it already.
of the banana split, huh?
I said I like it already, but go on. So sorry.
Okay. I don't eat banana
so if
split
life
sundae.
was a banana split sundae, what part of that banana split sundae would you be? And then tell me why.
That just sounds like such a weird question to ask.
It is a weird question.
Are you not going to scare a few people with that?
I used it. I've never scared anybody because of the way I ask it.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you ask it like in a creepy manner, if life was a banana split sundae, what part would you be in, Mike? Well, yeah, you're going to creep people out. But if you go in there, come on, let's have fun. I'm going to ask you a fun question. If life was a banana split sundae, what part would you be and why? Just for fun.
I have to Google what a banana split
Yeah, me
sundae
too.
looks
I would
like.
not know.
It's been a while, but I'm assuming there's a lot of ice cream, bananas,
and chocolate.
and
I think there's some
right?
chocolate fudge something.
Sure, you can. Hey, if you have a particular ingredient you always take with your sundae, you can add that in too.
Oh.
So what part would you be and why?
I think I'd want to be the base, the foundation, which I'm assuming is the ice cream, right?
Okay.
Because I like secure, grounded things. I like to know where I'm going, to understand my environment, to grow from the bottom. I guess that's how I would answer that question.
It took you about 10 seconds to answer that question. I know more about you right now than if we had had a superficial conversation.
Right.
Okay.
How about you, Itai? If life was a banana split sundae, what part of it would you be and why?
I would have like the vanilla ice cream part because it's nice. It's like soft and it's like cold. Yeah.
So
And
you
now
see
we know about
yourself
you.
as nice, soft, and cold?
Yeah. Does that say too much about me?
Well, actually, I'm not asking what you like about it. What part of it would you be? Use it as a symbol for something.
Oh, like as a symbol for me? I don't know. I really like vanilla, so I would want to be the vanilla.
All right. Now, what you're doing here, Itai, is that you've just given up an opportunity to communicate a deeper part of yourself to everybody who's listening. Because it's not about what you like. It's about the piece of the banana split that best represents you.
Well, I don't...
Let me give you a couple of examples of answers that I've been given. One guy told me I would be the spoon because the spoon controls everything.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Is that a bad answer?
Well, it depends. If the girl likes a guy who's always in control and wants to be in control of everything, it's a great answer. If it's a girl who doesn't want to be with a control freak, it's a bad answer. Depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you do risk, I mean, it is, again, how you present that question, because it can come across like, who's this
nut job?
This nut job is asking me about Sundays. All I know, Frank, is that you've gotten me really in the mood for banana split Sunday. So the first order of business after this show airs is where I'm going to go get myself a last piece of chametz and get myself a banana split Sunday.
Well, it is Sunday.
Yes, it is Sunday. True, it is the Howie Silbiger Show.
Here's one more thing. This is for Itai, okay? Because you had talked about dietary concerns earlier. Somebody once gave an answer that they would be the banana. And of course, it's easy to make a joke. Well, I'm a guy, so I would be the banana. Actually, his reasoning was, I would be the banana because it's the healthiest part of the sundae. And I really try to eat healthy. And now you can segue into a conversation about important dietary ideologies of yours. Do you see how you can go through conversations on a date like that?
You can slip them in.
That is interesting. That is really interesting.
The number to call if you want to weigh in on the conversation is 514-738-4100, extension 200. We've got about another minute and a half or so before we go to a commercial break. And, I mean, it really comes down to, I think if we can learn one thing from this hour that we've had the pleasure of speaking to Frank Kermit, is really, it's how you position what you want to communicate. It makes a real difference in what, like... In how your message is going to be perceived based on what we've been speaking recently, because you can say one thing one way, but if you position it in a fun way, if you find a way, I mean, being a good communicator really is paramount in relationships, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about what you have to communicate. If you go ahead and you communicate it in a way that's not interesting, that doesn't even attempt to properly connect with the person, you're going to turn people off. You know, and if you're talking to someone that has a particular interest, you could even ask them something within their interest. If you're on a date with somebody who loves art history, wonderful. What period of art history would you be and why? It's a way to get into people's heads and into their hearts.
Fascinating. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Frank Kermit, ND, naturopath and relationship coach. He has a website called franktalks.com, talks with an S. He has a workshop happening this Thursday on March 28th about Ask Me Anything. You can get more information there. If somebody wants to call you, how can they call you, Frank?
The phone number is 514-680-3278, and there's that workshop coming up on Thursday night. It's $10 per person. Come in for about 2 hours. Ask me anything you want. The website, franktalks.com.
Thank you, Frank. It's been a pleasure. Really happy to have you here. We hope to see you again on the show.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
What do you do when you feel like a fool? When your heart has been broken again? Pick up the phone or get onto Skype and talk on a private session. Yeah, get a little help from Frank Talks. Whoa, whoa, get by with a little help from Frank Talks. You gotta try a little help from Frank Talks. What do you do when your love goes away? Try coaching one-on-one. How do I sign up to turn things around? Just sign up at franktalks.com. Yeah, get by with help from Frank Talks. I get by with little help from Frank Talks. Time to try a little help from Frank Talks. Does it cost a lot of money? It's the best rate going around. Could it cost a lot of money? Oh, it's worth every cent that you will put down. Yeah. Frank Talks.com. Oh, you got to go to get your help from Frank Talks.com. Yeah, yeah. Would you believe that Frank gets results? Yes, we're certain. Just read the reviews. Frank knows his stuff, and Frank's never goods. Good love can soon come to you.